mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
My name is John Gordon. I'll be your host.
And I'm your host, Katie Burke.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. We bring the resource to you, the DU Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings. Joining us once again today is Field Hudnall, owner of Field Proven Calls and YETI Ambassador. Field, welcome back to the DU Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. Always.
Cool, man. You know, as part of YETI sponsorship of the Ducks Unlimited Podcast, which they've been great at sponsoring us here, they wanted to bring one of their YETI ambassadors on. They chose you. It's fantastic because, you know, last time you were on, we had a great conversation. But one of the main reasons why, you know, one, they chose you and while we're doing this is, you know, YETI has a new waterfowl book coming out. And so before we get into anything else as far as just random duck conversations like we had last time, I want you to go ahead and explain exactly what the YETI book is and what people should kind of be looking for when this book is launched.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's I've been a YETI ambassador, I believe, going on for 5 or 6 years now. Amazing company to work with, and it's the people. Everybody I've worked with there, it's the same thing like Ducks Unlimited. It's the people that make the company, and they are all very passionate outdoorsmen and in different pursuits. So I am a waterfowl ambassador. So the community that I work with are obviously waterfowl hunters, waterfowl enthusiasts, and YETI has done basically what they are is they are very high end table coffee books. I guess you call them a coffee table photo book. That's it.
There you go.
And what it is they've done them in the past. They've done one called Wild Sheep that they did with Adam Foss. They did one called Tarpon. And when I got the phone call and they were telling me that they were going to release one titled Ducks, I was beyond excited. And then I became overwhelmingly nervous and humbled when they asked me to help curate the book and to write the foreword for the book. First thing that popped in my head was, why me? You know, it was very intimidating, very exciting. But once I started working with the people that were putting the brains behind the operation, which was, Tallweg Creative, they're the ones that work with YETI directly on the publication and the creating of the book. And I got to work really close with a gentleman named Ryan Heffernan and Grayson Schaefer. They're the creative directors and editorial directors. Once we start talking about this book, it's like, how do you make a coffee table book about ducks? Well, right off the bat, and I was a little heartbroken about it, but we were like, is it ducks and geese or is it just ducks? And they were like, look, we've only got 160 pages to work with here. So because if we got into geese and we're having to look at swans and cranes and just gets in, ducks was overwhelming enough. So once we locked down that it was going to be about ducks, it was like, all right, now how do we organize this? Because as you know, Chris, and anyone listening to this that's a duck hunter, you could do an entire book on just one species, just mallards or canvasbacks or divers or whatever, you know? So what we wanted to do is, we had to keep reminding ourselves that it was not the one and only book to summarize ducks as a whole. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to break down the continent in the 4 major flyways, and we were going to dedicate a single chapter to each flyway. So when you open this book, it's absolutely beautiful. I've not seen it in paper print form. It's still being printed, and they print these books over in Italy on museum grade photo stock paper. They're beautiful books. But the PDF version that we've been working with, we basically brought together the most renowned waterfowl photographers in the business. Names like Lee Chose, Bill Buckley. I mean, just some absolute legends came to the table, and we literally had thousands of images submitted.
Wow.
And we started sifting through these images. So what we had to do is we categorized them on where the images came from. And it's not just photos of ducks, it's lifestyle. And that's the thing is, like, I looked at it from the outside looking in. I'm like, I've been in waterfowl hunting my entire life, but what if somebody picks this book up that doesn't know the first thing about waterfowl hunting? I wanted to paint a full picture of what waterfowling culture is about. And that is so hard to do because, as you know, let's just say mallards. If you're a mallard enthusiast, the waterfowl hunting culture in, let's say, Stuttgart, Arkansas, is completely different than it is in North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma. It's different people, it's different styles of hunting, it's a different culture altogether, even though it's a single species. So we didn't want to focus on species as much as we wanted to focus on the people. Yeah. And that's what's really cool about the book, is because it's a book of portraits also. So, if I had it my way, I would have said it's going to take a minimum of 2 to 3, possibly 5 years to put this book together. Well, we didn't have that time, but we've got some beautiful portraits of some amazing people that have dedicated their lives to the waterfowling life. That's everything from conservationists, past Ducks Unlimited presidents, call makers, decoy carvers, guides, you name it. And what I really wanted to do is I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a book that was paying tribute to those that are well known in the mainstream arena, but it's the people you've never heard of. The people that are so consumed with waterfowl hunting and that lifestyle that they don't have social media pages. You've never heard of them, but they are truly some of the best in the business. And some of these people I met through, my time as a host of Ducks Unlimited Television. And that's what I really wanted to bring to this book was, with DUTV, it tells so many different stories, and it showcases people that nobody's ever heard of, but they are amazing conservationists and amazing waterfowl hunters.
Yeah, I actually got the...
So this book... Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was saying I actually got the PDF of it earlier,
Oh, you did? All right.
So I've been able to go through and kind of look at it and look at some of the people, and it's really cool. I think people are going to be really impressed with it. And I think, saying it like a photo book of ducks is a little... misleading as far as, it's also a photo book of hunters, like you said, portraits, hunting, dogs, habitat, boats. Like there's some just cool shots in here that are just, like you said, It really just encapsulates everything that duck hunting is about. And so it's really cool, like you said, it's almost more of a lifestyle thing, which is neat.
It is. And when we were putting this book together again, there were some people that I would have literally given up a finger for to make sure that they were in this book. Just people that in my life have been complete, I look as living legends. But unfortunately, this book would have to be 500 pages to cover, to try to cover a fraction of the people that deserve to be in this book.
Yeah.
So it's a tip of the hat to the waterfowling community. Again, it doesn't cover everything. It's impossible to cover everything, but I think it's a pretty good, so also there's 4 essays. All right. So it came down to, there's 4 flyways. We're going to have 4 editorials in each one. How do we determine what these editorials are? Do you make it about a location? Do you make it about, a place, a wetland, and we decided to make them about people. And again, this was extremely difficult because I wanted it to be, really it's about people. Some of them are a little more well-known than others, but I want them to be about people that have amazing stories that a lot of people haven't heard of. They're not, and as you get into those stories, they're not always PC correct, but it's the reality of it. In YETI, I mean, they're all about showing the reality of things, the personalities of people. You can't, people are who they are, and that's the way it is. And that's what I was very proud that, and especially the photos, you look at the images, they're not just portraits of people, but you try to capture their personality. And I think a lot of these portraits, if you know that person, their personality really shows in that in that photo.
And just kind of glancing even at the PDF, which I'm excited to see the printed version. It'll be awesome. But it really does, and you can look at it and you're like, oh, this is probably a Yeti thing. You can kind of get the feel of it. It's just, and it's not like it's not like over the top where there's, Yeti products. It's not a product guide. It's more or less just, it's just lifestyle.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even, right off the top of my head, there might be a cut one or two in there, but I cannot think of a single image that, has a Yeti product in it, actually. Mm-hmm. There might be one or two, but nothing really sticks out to me.
Yeah.
And one thing that was so much fun was we went down to the Museum of the Arkansas Grand Prairie, and that's where we held one of our photo shoots. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil one of the images that's in here, because a lot of people don't know much about it, but the jacket that's made out of mallard greenheads, is in this book. And that the people at the Museum of the Arkansas Grand Prairie were absolutely amazing. That was you talk about a still life photographer's playground. Mm-hmm. We could pick everything, anything we wanted off the shelf, and they took still lifes of different items, and just it was such a fun book to work on and put together. And I was just humbled and honored to work with some amazing professionals, people that are so much better at what they do than I am. Again, it was just very humbling.
So when will the book be available? Is that information out yet?
Yes. Absolutely. The book will drop November 20th.
Okay.
And they are going to have a featured release at the World Duck Calling Championship down in Stuttgart, Arkansas.
Oh, cool.
And they're only going to print 3,000 copies of the book. And once it's done, it's done. And they are actually giving Ducks Unlimited 500 copies for Ducks Unlimited to do whatever they want with, for conservation.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think what's cool about this too, and you mentioned where it's just a focus on ducks. But what's kind of neat about that is you kind of open the door for Yeti Presents Geese. You could always have that.
I know. And I was just like, man, if they do Geese, I really hope to, at least maybe offer some opinions on that one, because it could be such a cool book. But no, I hope they do. I really hope they do.
Well, cool. We'll see how this takes off. I know I'm excited to see it. I'm sure other people are excited to see it. And I know Ducks Unlimited appreciates, being involved in it, and also, being able to receive 500 of these copies to raise money for conservation. So that's exciting.
Yes, absolutely.
So, as we roll on with this conversation, and I think the first thing I'll just kind of throw it out there, because we've done this with other guests, that, how we haven't had you on. Well, I think you were on in the summer doing the DUTV stuff, but
yes, sir.
We haven't had you on in the regular season, since last year. And so I want to touch base with you just as far as, just a wrap up of how was your duck season last year?
It was actually really good. So I mainly hunt the Ohio River. Mm-hmm. I didn't hardly do any traveling last year like we normally do. But we really focused on the Ohio River, and a good friend of mine, who's also a Ducks Unlimited donor, Mr. Austin Musselman. He's got we've been doing some waterfowl wetland habitat management stuff, in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And we're about 6 years.
Getting into my territory.
Indiana's a big state.
I know.
Indiana's a big state. And it's a project we've been working on for about 6 years. And what I love the most about it, because I'm born and raised just a river rat, hunting public, the Ohio River, and whatever, happened to, I always say we're in a flyway, but we're not really in a flyway. Yeah. We don't get a lot of anything, but we get a little bit of everything on that river, and you never know when it's going to come through. And for so many years, it's just been very inconsistent hunting. And ever since Mr. Austin started really, trying to create some wetland habitat, just to really, not necessarily for hunting, but just to try to give the ducks in our area a spot to rest, a spot to feed. and it's made the hunting better, in our area. Is it great? No, but it's better than what it was.
Yeah.
And we're learning how to hunt it. We're learning how to manage it to where the ducks, they do have a place to really rest along their flight. And it's been good. Our goose hunting hasn't been that great. It hasn't been that great for about 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But the duck hunting has been good. And that's what I love about where we hunt, is because, again, you're not going to go out there and shoot limits. It doesn't happen. But one day you might go out there and shoot, mallards and widgeon and even in pintails. And the very next day, you go out there thinking you're going to do it again, and you may not see a mallard, but you might shoot a redhead. You might shoot a canvasback. We've even shot a long-tailed duck out there before. It's a unique area, but it's enough to keep us happy, but not good enough to draw too much attention, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's probably the way to do it. Don't draw too much attention.
Exactly.
I got a good buddy that hunts the Ohio right there, almost at the confluence with the Wabash in Ohio. And
okay,
he did pretty well last year. I mean, he had some slow days, but then there towards the end, I think he was pretty happy with the hunting there. It kind of picked up right at the end. So that's good to hear that your guys was very similar. I mean, I'm sure everyone kind of improved a little bit later last year when the weather shifted a little bit.
Absolutely. We always keep our eyes right around that area north of there, around Dayton, Indianapolis, because that really foreshadows what we're about to see in our area. And a lot of times those birds will stop just north of us. And because of the weather's only severe enough to push them to that point, and then they never really get all the way towards us. And a lot of times when they do hit us, they just overshoot us and just keep moving.
Yeah.
But and I don't know, any more at my age, shooting a duck isn't what gets me out there. There's little pleasures that I've learned to enjoy more than just pulling the trigger on a duck. So it's, I don't know. I'm getting philosophical there and pretty deep.
No, I mean, we just had Jim Ronquist on, like a week ago, and he kind of talked. He always just talked about the same thing. It's not always about filling your straps and doing that. It can be something else. Something for him. It's like kind of the boat rides and the, just being out there and people smiling and having a good time. And so, it's just one of those things where that's kind of different for everybody. And you're right. I mean, I'm getting older. You're getting older. You're kind of getting to the stage where, I'm not really worried about stacking them up as much as, hey, let's go back to the house and all cook a bunch of breakfast and hang out. It's like, it doesn't always have to be that, hardcore hunting, I guess.
Everybody's journey is different, and honestly, I don't think it matters what age you get into waterfowl hunting. Everyone starts at A, A to Z, if that's your journey in the waterfowl game. And don't get me wrong, everyone loves good hunts. And when, we were younger or, just getting into the waterfowl game, I remember Clay and I would wake up and we'd get up at, 1 a.m. to drive 3.5 hours or 2 hours into Indiana. I'm not going to mention any spots, just to get those good hunts, because we knew we might shoot, 3 or 4 more ducks at this spot than we would in our backyard.
Yeah.
Well, at this age in the game, it's like, I'll sacrifice 2 or 3 ducks and not drive 2 or 3 additional hours, But no, I mean, it's, don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody loves great hunts, but I've been very blessed, as I know you have, and Mr. Ronquist, that, when you've had some really good hunts that, you can I can slow it down just a little bit. I'm not as, the term that a lot of people like to use, I'm not as mad at them as I used to be when I was younger.
That's what I was going to say. That's what the buddy I hunt with all the time. He's always like, we're going to sit all day. We're going to sit all day. If they're not flying this morning, I'm like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm just not that mad at them. I got things to do. I got kids. I'm not, you can't always sit all day. It's like, I used to, but man, not now. Now I'm busy. But no, that's cool. And you're hunting with your kids now too, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. My brother, he's got a little boy and a girl, and I got 2 boys who are 9 and 6. And before, especially this year, I know that they definitely want to hunt a whole lot more, but I'm very blessed that because of my job, the career path that I chose to take, and I can hunt weekdays. And I'll hunt weekdays in the morning. Clay and I will. Our shop is literally 300-400 yards from the boat ramp. And we'll hunt the river. And then if it's good, we'll shoot our ducks, and then we'll come back into work. If it's not good, we'll come back even sooner and get work done. But then I kind of made a rule I didn't hunt on Saturday or Sunday, because that's when my kids were home from school and I'm making them pancakes and breakfast and stuff. And that's our time. But now as they're getting older, I think Saturday and Sundays, they're going to want to be out on that water hunt.
Yeah.
So
you may have to take a couple weekdays off just to.
I know, right?
Wear yourself
exactly.
out. No, that's cool. So,
yep.
You mentioned your brother, and I just wanted to touch on field proven calls and how's everything going field proven? And, do you got any new products out right now?
Man, it's going great. In fact, I mean, it sounds bad, but I'm busier than what I want to be, honestly. Business is great. We're building calls every day. We do have a new goose call coming out called the SBG, which stands for just short barrel goose. It's a polycarbonate call that has a worn gut system in it. It's very smooth, easy to operate. It's a call that 5 or 10 years ago you would have spent $160 on. Now you can get, I'm not sure what our final price point is, but it's like right around $60, I think. Full lifetime warranty on it. No, I mean, business is good. And I don't complain, because I absolutely love my job, but also it's, I tune goose calls every day, and it takes a toll on your hearing. I've noticed I've got tinnitus, and it's gotten worse over the years. And so it's one of those things that, it's taxing on my body, but I'm going to do it for as long as I can.
Yeah.
But no, business is very good.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I know there was, so many different calls out in the markets today, but you guys have seemed to stay fairly consistent in that, in that area, and that's awesome to see.
Yeah, we don't release new calls every year.
Yeah.
Our kind of model is if we see a void and it makes sense for us to create a call to fill that void in our lineup. And really, that's where when we just go to direct consumer shows, we talk to customers. I mean, Clay and I will we talk to every single one. And when we start hearing or noticing that, all right, these guys are wanting a sound that, we can fill this need, then we'll create a new call. But we haven't created a new call in, 5 years. Or no, I guess we did the call with no name probably 3 or 4 years ago. So it's been 4 years. So we're due to come out with a new one, and we're excited about it.
Cool.
We're very excited about it.
And those will be available in stores this fall.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, they will.
Awesome. Well, cool. I think this is a good opportunity right here before we get into our next topic. We'll just go ahead and take a break real quick.
Awesome.
Cool. We'll wrap this up with just a conversation. I'm just going to talk to you about. Have you done any early season goose hunting?
So it's funny you say that. Clay and I were actually going to go this morning, but we're right now we're at that stage where the weather's starting to get cooler. The river is still very warm. Like, you can go out there and swim in it.
Yeah.
In the mornings, the fog is so thick. So my brother, he lives literally right on the river. I mean, his backyard is the river. I live, it's actually 120 yards exactly off the river. But I'm up the hill. I'm not in floodplain. My brother, sometimes he'll sleep at night when that river's rising. And I was sitting on the porch this morning, and we knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on the porch this morning drinking coffee, and the fog was so thick, like I couldn't even see the houses, directly in front of us.
Yeah.
The barges are just sounding their horns off because when they can't see, they're just constantly sounding their horns. And there were geese out there flying around. I could hear them. But Clay and I were like, do we give it a try? I'm like, man, we're going to be fogged in until 10 o'clock anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, no, we didn't do any early goose. We might do it Maybe Saturday or Sunday.
Cool.
I go out of town to Utah on Monday, but we might give it a shot.
Yeah, well, that's cool. You don't want to mess with that fog anyway. No. So, one thing that we've been really heavy on this early in this podcast season, which like August and into September, is the BPOP survey. And I'm sure you probably saw stuff on the BPOP survey, even things that we put out or other people put out. How do you guys look at that? Like, how do you look at that habitat, breeding population and habitat survey that comes out from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Canadian Wildlife Service, as a hunter, as a call manufacturer? Like, how do you look at that BPOP survey when it comes out?
For us in our area here, the trend is if the numbers are good and surveys are looking positive, from a call company standpoint, we love it when people are excited about waterfowl hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But even when people, if the numbers are down or it is bad, it's just one of those things. Waterfowl hunters are still, they have a positive outlook on everything. They're going to get out there and hunt. They're going to do their thing. You could say we're probably not going to see a duck today, and they're still going to go out there and hunt.
Yeah.
And with us, what we've noticed is we are weather driven 100%.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with us is I've never in a season really seen a forecast that, now don't get me wrong, when the water's good, the hatch is good, and people are having great hunts up north, that's where our ducks come from. We don't have many ducks being born and raised here in Kentucky and Indiana. Everything is in the north. So we love seeing those positive numbers. It just makes everybody, more excited. And you go out there, positive vibes result in positive, outcomes and hunts, in my opinion. If you go out there negative, you're going to have negative hunts. So I love seeing good surveys. I love people talking about, healthy hatches with the ducks.
Yeah, and we kind of hit on it in a couple different podcasts, myself and my co-host, Dr. Mike Brazier, where, hunters like me and even yourself, you're almost the same age as me. Like, we've never really hunted in a restricted season, so we don't really even know kind of what that means. So, maybe that means some people don't pay as much attention to the survey when maybe they should. So I'm always curious just to see kind of how other hunters, and especially, someone who owns a, waterfowl industry business, that, how you look at it. And it sounds like you look at it the right way. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily the end all be all of numbers. It's really just
for sure.
Yeah. So that's cool.
And now I will say, like when we were doing the show out in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, we get a lot of hunters from Maryland and Delaware. And the last year we were out there, they all got shut down to one goose again. Mm-hmm. And there was talk of them even losing their goose season again, like Maryland did years ago. And there was a lot of, there was a lot of panic. People were concerned. But talking to the outfitters and the hunters, they're still positive. I mean, they're literally talking about possibly taking their goose season away. And then like, well, we'll just become duck hunters. We'll start hunting the Chesapeake, and we're still, hunters are going to hunt, It's, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, no, it's optimism. I mean, the place where I hunt in Arkansas, we've kind of transitioned our mindset from, we used to be a duck club, and about 2 years ago we switched to, we just tell everybody, no, we're just a goose club. We're just goose hunting most of the time. So, this is not a duck club anymore. We're a goose club.
Yeah.
So it's just a
prime example of that is Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois. Mm-hmm. They were always in debate with the Eastern Shore of Maryland as being who truly was the goose capital of the world. Was it Southern Illinois, or was it, the Eastern Shore of Maryland? And when, which I remember as a kid when it was in the heyday, and my dad was traveling to Southern Illinois goose hunting all the time. Mm-hmm. Back when, the reports of the geese coming in was in the hundreds of thousands per hour.
Yeah.
But ever since that started dwindling away, all those goose clubs, they transformed into duck clubs, and they've got some phenomenal duck hunting. And, they kind of knew that the writing was on the wall. And I remember talking to like a lot of the guys that, Higdon and the guys that had the clubs in Southern Illinois. There were some clubs that would not let go of the past. They're like, no, we're a goose club and we're going to stay a goose club. And they eventually phased out. But the ones that were like, we want to hunt.
Yeah.
So they started transforming everything into a duck club, and they're having great success.
Yeah, and a lot of those geese, even where I'm from, where I'm from is only about 3.5 hours south of Chicago, and there's times where those geese big numbers will geese still stack up in central Indiana, but it's got to get super cold. But the majority of those geese that used to come down are like hanging out around Milwaukee right now, and that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, now those guys up there are enjoying it. I mean, I don't know if you can find better like Canada goose hunting than around like some of the Milwaukee and Chicago metro areas. They just stack up. It's crazy. They do. And it's like central Indiana. Y'all are the ones that when y'all load up, which like you said, it's got to get crazy cold. Mm-hmm. And then we're down here just across the river, like, come on down just a little bit further. And then they'll hang up right there on you guys. Yeah. It's just the way it goes, So, we'll lead into that. This coming season, what are your expectations? What are you telling people at shows? Like, or is there anything specific that you're looking forward to?
Anything specific. We've done on a personal level. Last year, again, we had a good year with the ducks. We've got some new tactics and strategies that we're going to try on the Ohio. I'm going back to my age. I love trying stuff that is outside the box, outside the norm, just crazy. Like Clay and I, we'll talk decoy strategy, or, if we're in a lull, it's like, man, what if we tried this? It's absolutely insane. Nobody does it, but let's go out there and try this. It's like, what do we got to lose? Either A, it works out and you're a hero, or it doesn't work out and you're just, it was crazy. It was a crazy idea anyway.
Yeah.
So we've got some stuff that we're going to try on the river that's kind of outside the box, mainly for attracting birds. And then, ever since last year, we had the good hunts. We did some more dirt work. We put some more habitat on the ground for the waterfowl in this area, and I'm really excited to see how the ducks react to it. And again, we don't really get our ducks, any number of ducks, till almost December. It's just the way it is. Yeah, you can go out there on opening day, you'll shoot the local ducks, but it takes December until we really see any numbers.
Yeah, you guys probably have pretty good wood duck hunting right there along the river, though, don't you?
We do. A lot of people go after them and hit them pretty hard because any of the creeks or the sloughs, or we don't have a lot of backwater in our area because it's just such a deep river in the way the Ohio flows through us. But there is a lot of wood duck opportunities, and I remember, it was probably 7-8 years ago. We had blue-winged teal like we've never had before. We were going out. We were shooting limits of blue-winged teal like every day
on the river.
But that has on the river, nice. Yes, because we would see about 4 or 5 flocks of them that literally had like 50, 80 to a couple hundred birds that just stayed in our area, and you could pluck away at them for a good 4 or 5 day stretch. And that hasn't happened. We've never seen that again. And then every year here is so different. We've had years to where you saw pintails and you would have thought you were in California. Like flies. And then the next year, if you shoot a pintail, you're excited. It's the way it is here.
Yeah, no, that area, that area is such a migration transition area. I mean, we teal hunted when I was growing up, but it was so hit or miss. Like you would try and scout and find some birds, and if you did, you'd go back them that next morning, and there was about a 50-50 chance that you'd show up and you wouldn't see a bird because those birds were just bouncing along. They're getting out of there. So if you had them for 4 or 5 days, that's pretty awesome.
That's what I'm saying. It was awesome. Yeah. But that's a faint, fond memory at this point because it's like, well, don't hang your hat on that because there's not a good chance it'll happen again.
But be ready just in case it does, right?
Always be ready. That's right. Be ready for anything.
So,
yes, sir.
Going into this season, are you what are some of these new secret tactics? Do you want to share any of them, or are you guys going to pull the maybe the one decoy strategy, or
We have tried smaller spreads. I tell you what, if it works, I'll tell you what doesn't work next year. How about that?
That's perfect. That's exactly.
No, I mean it's just some location stuff, different. Decoy spreads, and just really the way you set up, because I don't care where you're from. It's kind of like fishing. If you get hung up on what has worked in the past, a lot of people just like to stick with that exact same method. And if it goes stale, you're always thinking, well, it worked before, it's got to work again. Well, there might be something that might work just a little bit better. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. We used to, this was years ago, we started running large Canada spreads. And it was very effective because a lot of people wouldn't run large Canada spreads, and we were shooting ducks in our Canadas. Well, that was, over 20 years ago. And now, over the last 5 years, we've noticed that our massive Canada spreads are not as effective as what they used to be on ducks. So we started reducing our Canada spreads down a little bit. So it was one of those things that was like, oh my gosh, this is a no-brainer. And it was amazing. It was just as effective as like the spinning wing.
Yep.
But over the years, we started noticing the birds, mainly the geese. The big river sets for the geese, they actually started avoiding it a little bit because we saw a lot of people in our area. And if you read, any type of tip magazine or whatever, people were really talking about big dark spreads.
Yeah.
And I think they're just kind of slowly starting to, I don't know. It's, we're going to just change it up a little bit.
Yeah. I think I wrote one of those articles quoting you on one of those big dark river spreads where you're, really targeting ducks, but that was probably 5-8 years ago. I know. But I remember you mentioning that's how you were doing it, and that's something I never did up there. We didn't have enough floaters to do anything like that. We were limited on the number of floaters we had.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love looking at a big water, big set. I love looking at big decoy spreads, and I am a creature of habit also, and I'll probably continue to do the same thing, to be honest with you.
Hard to give it up. There's some hunters out there who they don't want to change their spread, and then there's others, and I'm probably guilty of it. I change it too much. I want to get out there and, let's move it over here. Let's move it over here. Let's try this. And like some of the guys at home are like, why would we try that? We smacked them yesterday. I'm like, I don't know. Do something different. So that's good.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, my thing is I get the joy and the pleasure. And again, talking about numbers, I'm not as mad at them as I used to be. But the one thing that frustrates me the most on hunting is when we set a spread and if the birds are landing wide of the decoys. All right. It's one thing when they don't land at all. They're just, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But when they actually work your spread, but they land where it wasn't the spot you want them to land in. That's what drives me crazy. It's like we fooled them, but we didn't fool them enough. There's something that we can do different to get them to work just a little bit closer, or I want that bird to land in the exact spot that we set up, for that bird to land in. So that's where I get my pleasure. If I shoot one duck on the river that literally works perfect, comes in and lands in that exact square foot spot, my day's made. I'm like, we still got it. It's not necessarily shooting handfuls for a picture or whatever. It's we fooled them the way we wanted to.
Yeah, that is probably one of the better feelings when you set the decoys and you set everything up and you set yourself up and you're sitting there and you're kind of trying to explain to like some guys I'm hunting with, like, see, they're going to hook off of this end and they're going to land right there. And then like they only do that about 1 out of 10 times. It's like, and when it's right, you're like looking around like, see, I told you, that's it. I knew what they were going to do. But you only get to say that on occasion. You never get to say it all the time.
I know.
But that is one of the better feelings. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. This has been a great conversation. And do you have anything else to add about the duck book from YETI?
I am so excited, honored, and humbled, and I feel like the number of people that were involved in it, the amount of talent of people contributing to it. I know it's going to be an amazing book, and I can't thank YETI enough for doing something in our world, the waterfowlers world. They've done it with wild sheep, they've done it with tarpon, they've done it with whitewater, and for them to create such an amazing tribute to the waterfowling world, I'm very thankful to YETI and can't thank them enough. And I'm excited about the book to launch. It's a great perspective on our waterfowling world that I feel like is very well rounded. That kind of pays tribute to all types of waterfowling cultures from coast to coast. So I'm very excited about it.
Cool. That's awesome. And it's awesome that YETI's doing this, kind of on behalf and supporting, wetlands conservation throughout North America. So that's an exciting give back for us. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
Just a benefit
Absolutely.
for all waterfowl hunters out there. So.
Yes, sir.
So, Field, this has been great. I appreciate you taking the time today, and we'll have to get you back in. We may have to get you back in earlier this year, just because mainly I want to hear some of the tactics that failed on the river this year. Some of the ones that didn't work.
The ones that fail might be a little more vocal about to talk about. The ones that work really well, I might have to hang on to those just for another season, just to make sure they still work. Right?
That's right. You don't want to give away all the secrets quite yet.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Cool.
Well, Chris, man, it's been a pleasure, and thank you all so much for thinking of me to have me on. It's always an honor talking to you all.
All right, no problem, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank my guest, Field Hudnall, owner of Field Proven Calls and a YETI ambassador, for joining the DU podcast and talking about the new YETI Presents Ducks book. I'd also like to thank our producer, Chris Isaac, for putting the show together, getting it out to you, and doing a great job. I'd also like to thank you, the listener, for joining us on the DU podcast and supporting wetlands conservation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU Podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks.